If God is beyond words, how can silence speak his name? The question sounds mystical, but it is in fact philosophical. We ordinarily equate communication with sound, sentences, and statements. Yet Rumi suggests that the deepest truths emerge only when speech stops. In his framework, silence is not the absence of expression. It is a change in the instrument of knowing. When the mind stops narrating, awareness can perceive directly. Silence, in Rumi's teaching, is a distinct mode of cognition. It quiets the ego's interference and allows contact with reality as it is. Modern research in attention science and contemplative neuroscience offers converging evidence. When the brain's chatter reduces, perception becomes more accurate, regulation improves, and insight events become more likely. Silence can say what language cannot. The contemporary mind is overstimulated. Multitasking, message alerts, and continuous commentary create mental noise that fragments attention. Cognitive scientists describe this as attentional fragmentation. Repeated task switching prevents sustained awareness and increases error rates. The problem is not the quantity of input, but the constancy of it. There is little unstructured space for cognition to consolidate. Chronic distraction elevates stress hormones and weakens executive control. Studies associate persistent interruptions with reduced working memory and increased anxiety. Linguistic overproduction, both external speech and internal. Monologue stabilizes a rigid narrative identity that the brain defends even when it conflicts with reality. The result is self-organized around commentary rather than contact. Rumi named the same pattern centuries ago, the self trapped in ceaseless commentary mistakes noise for knowledge. The remedy is not withdrawal, but a return to presenza. Trained quiet in which perception becomes receptive instead of reactive. Silence reorganizes attention. Rumi treated silence as both practice and metaphysics. Words can point but cannot deliver essence. Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. This is not anti-intellectual. It defines a boundary. Language divides the field of experience into subject and object. Silence suspends that division long enough for unity to be recognized. It is not ignorance, but direct awareness unmediated by concepts. Rumi treats ordinary speech and thought as veils over direct perception. Words sort and label. Classification helps us navigate, but it also separates. Silence dissolves some of that separation by reducing compulsory labeling. Neuroscientific studies show that during deep meditation, activity in the brain's default mode, network responsible for self-referential thinking, decreases. Connectivity shifts toward regions supporting present-centered attention. Practitioners report a softening of ego boundaries and an increase in sensory vividness. When inner verbalization subsides, awareness reallocates resources from commentary to observation. The mind is not empty. It is more perceptive. To hear God in Rumi's sense, the mind must stop talking long enough to register what is already present. Rumi distinguishes between external quiet and inner silence. External quiet is the absence of sound. Inner silence is receptive stillness, the ability to remain with what is occurring without narrating it. Your silence is full of answers. Stop waiting for words, he writes. This aligns with the psychological concept of meta-awareness, consciousness aware of itself. In moments of awe-staring at a night sky or encountering powerful art, language often drops away while comprehension intensifies. Studies on flow states show decreased inner dialogue, heightened immersion, and improved performance. The brain's networks harmonize, rather than compete. Rumi's point is not withdrawal from the world, but full presence to it, without the distortions of compulsive narration. Silence is attentional integrity. When I am silent, I fall into the place where everything speaks. When the inner narrator quiets, the sense of I as a contracted center relaxes. Mindfulness research shows that persistent self-referential thinking maintains emotional distress. When narrative activity diminishes and interoceptive attention increases, people report greater clarity and acceptance. Neuroimaging reveals shifts from narrative self-networks to regions linked with embodied awareness and empathy. For Rumi, this softening is ethical as well as cognitive. As the self's boundary softens, compassion and unity become more available. Silence is not private tranquility. It reorganizes how one relates to others. Rumi's highest teaching is that revelation, the perception of truth, arrives not through language, but through awakened stillness. Be silent and listen to the song of the universe. In silence, the gap between knower and known narrows. Knowing and being coincide. Studies of long-term practitioners report gamma synchrony during deep, silent awareness, an indicator of large-scale neural integration. Many experience sudden insight after quiet incubation. The brain uses silence to reorganize information into higher-order patterns that noise disrupts. Silence optimizes conditions for insight by reducing interference, increasing integration, and aligning perception with reality's structure. Silence is not opposed to sound. It grounds it. In Islamic cosmology, creation is described as a divine command, be, and it is. Speech arises from primordial silence. Expression returns to silence. The value of speech depends on the integrity of the silence from which it emerges. Truth is better approached by reducing inner noise. The most accurate model is not the most complex, but the most coherent. Silence in a recording studio is not the absence of vibration. It is controlled equilibrium that prevents echoes. Likewise, psychological coherence arises when brain networks harmonize, reducing internal interference. When that happens, signal to noise improves. What Rumi calls the language of God may be the world's inherent order becoming audible. When the mind's echo chamber is quiet, Rumi's insight can be practiced. Conscious withdrawal. Schedule short intervals without screens or input. The aim is cognitive reset, not deprivation. Reduced stimulation improves creativity and emotional regulation. Silent observation. Observe inner dialogue without engaging it. Label thoughts briefly and return to awareness. This weakens automatic influence and strengthens regulation. Embodied stillness. Rest attention on breath or heartbeat. This activates calm states and increases interoceptive awareness. Reflective silence after speech. Insert brief pauses at the end of tasks or conversations. This improves listening, retention, and composure. Meaning reconstruction. Use longer quiet periods to examine core beliefs. Ask which perceptions are direct and which are commentary. Reflection without reactivity allows restructuring of maladaptive narratives. Together, these practices train attention to become receptive. Silence becomes skillful contact with life. For Rumi, silence is not absence, but presence, the condition in which divine intelligence becomes audible. In silence, the mind's commentary decreases, separation relaxes, and perception approaches reality with fewer distortions. Modern research supports this. Reduced narrative activity, improved regulation, increased coherence, and greater insight. Silence recalibrates cognition, emotion, and perception. It reduces reactivity, increases empathy, and aligns awareness with reality's actual signals. Silence is a more faithful way of knowing than noise. When silence speaks God's name, it does not do so in words. It communicates His understanding, the realization that what one seeks through speech is already present when speech falls away. What remains is not emptiness, but awareness itself, orderly, receptive, and quietly truthful. That is the hidden path, not escape from life, but entry into it without the interference of the self that must always speak.